Here we are with a nice Itoigawa juniper. We can say that this is a kind of a Shohin size. The tree was developed in a nursery in Japan for many years. The deadwood selection was done in the last few years, and now the live line are nice and growing very strong. There are still a lot of branches on the trees. The tree is super strong. We work on juniper only when they show elongation like this. If the tree is just bushy, we have just to do eventually a little bit of selection, because we want always the tree to be as strong as possible when we work on the tree, and especially if we're planning to do a first styling. That is something we're doing today on this tree. We want to have a lot of nice extension. Itoigawa juniper is very good as a starting material for beginners, intermediate, and even advanced student. The foliage is very nice and tight. This particular tree has a very nice and tight foliage, very good for Shohin size. You can see the difference from the Itoigawa and most of the other juniper, normally native juniper from US, either from Europe. When those native juniper shoot so strong and long, they tend to lose the inner foliage. But Itoigawa and Kishu, either if they have a lot of energy in the outside, they have still a lot of nice green in the inside. So eventually when we shape the tree for the first time and we start pruning the tree, we have a lot of nice branches, and we can move back the energy inside and keep the development of the maturity of the tree using the inner green. This tree has a lot of character. There is a lot of movement in the lower part of the trunk. Probably the upper part of the trunk is a little bit more boring, but my plan is to squeeze the tree more together, create something nice and more compact to highlight this wavy trunk in the lower part. I will see how I'd like to select my first branch and start creating my pads, and starting from that point give a new shape to the entire design. So the first step to start working on this tree and give the first style, after understanding that the tree is nice and strong and is ready for its first step, is going inside and clean all the first branches coming from the main line of the tree, because we don't really need those inner branches, and they are eventually annoying us to see exactly how is the structure of the tree. So if we don't see exactly the structure, we can't make a decision. And also in the moment that we're gonna reach the wiring time, those branches are not gonna help us to be nice and clean on our wiring. So first things first, I will clean the tree, and then we're gonna analyze all the structure, decide which one is the front, why, which one is the angle, why, if we want to change the angle or not, and then start making all the move to style this tree and give the first shape. So basically when I do the cleaning, I cut everything, the first section of the branches. So this first section is nice and clean. Eventually, if there are branches coming from the armpit, I'm gonna cut them away. Eventually, some branch that is very weak, some branch that is growing underneath the trunk or underneath the main branches. It's very important to remove everything that for sure is not important for the shape and the future of our tree. And we know we're not gonna use branches that are too weak or branches that are growing in a position that we don't need. For example, on this branch here, we can see and we can decide that this is the top of the branch, this is the bottom of the branch, so for sure I don't need all these branches growing underneath the main line. This is also helping us to give more light in the inside. In the meantime, have these lines ready to be wired and eventually positioned. The same story is for branches coming from the armpit, branches that are very weak. Here we can see I have branches in the inside of this major branch, some growing underneath. This branch is growing underneath the trunk. This one is very, very weak, so we can go and cut it off. We just need to work for the first styling with the good foliage. We need to build the bones for a future good bonsai. So we really want to focus on that, and that's the reason why we do the cleaning. So in the meantime, while we do the cleaning and we start opening the tree with our hands, we can also figure out which lines are useful for the future design, which branches probably can be cut away, and we can try and start visualizing a project for the tree. Okay, so now we can already see how nice and clean is the tree, okay? And so we can start thinking about the shape. So the tree has a lot of character, as you can see in the lower part of the trunk. There are a lot of nice twists. We have live lines side by side with a nice shari running from the base all over, almost to the apex. We have a lot of strength in the top. We have another big branch in this position coming kind of from the back of the tree. We have always to choose a front and an angle according to the best trunk movement. So here I have a nice movement. The movement on this tree is also very nice because it's three-dimensional. It's not just a tree that is assing up, but is also moving in the tree X. The tree come forward, then go back, and then come forward again. So this can be eventually a possible front. I'm still not thinking about the angle. We're gonna decide about the angle later on. Let's have a look at some other option. For example, this part here can also be an interesting front. Same reason, the trunk is moving nice. We have some elbow inside of this line, a nice inner line, and then I have a lot of foliage here. I can eventually decide to get rid of this part that is going in the back and just create a nice smaller tree using these branches and pushing these branches down. On this part, for example, I don't like much the first part of the trunk that is a little bit too straight, so I will need to change the angle a lot to kind of get rid of this defect. From this part, I also have a little bit better connection with the ground. There are some roots in this side. There is a roots actually here that is crossing on top of a big one, so I can go through with no fear and cut this root off. This tree again is very, very strong, and I'm not creating any damage, just cutting this little root away because I have another big one that is the one giving energy to the inner liveline. What we can do is also always trying to bend the tree together to try to squish again together. So for me, it's not a problem if we end up with the tree this high. And what I would like to do is using this branch because it's nice and strong and very ramified, and this branch can be an interesting first branch of the tree. So always having a first branch coming from a side or even the back of the tree and coming forward, welcoming the eyes of the observer is a very good thing, because we don't want to create just a sideline that is a bidimensional line, but creating a branch that is doing an arch and hugging us visually is always better to the final shape of the tree. So, for example, this can be a nice, interesting branch to become the first branch of my tree in case I'm going to use this as a front. Better than a branch like this one that is already very frontal, and I have to push the branch back to then create my first pad. I have a lot of branches that are very useful for depth, coming all from this live line. If I use this front, eventually I have to select a lot of them, and I risk also that, for example, selecting this as a new as a gin, because I don't need it. If I look at the tree from here, I'm gonna lose one of the two live lines. So to preserve both live lines is better always to use as much foliage as possible. So said that, what we can do is sit the tree a little bit backwards like this, so we can show a little bit more the trunk. Also, we can cut away some of these inner branches and open the view of the observer to the entire half of the tree, where we see all the trunk. We can still push the trunk together and show this elbow, and then we can use either these guys to recreate our apex on top of the vertical of the tree, having a tree that is nice and dynamic with a very good first branch in the left side, and then we can still keep some green in the right side to rebalance all the movement. So decided my strategy and decided my final goal for today, for the first time, I have to remove the branches that I don't need. So as I said, these two inner branches, they can go. I leave a little bit of a stick from this one that eventually I can transform in a gin. The other one is too young and I take it away completely. And then the next one will be this branch that is the one competing with the branch I want to use for my main branch. So I'm going to cut this one. Now that I visualize my design in my mind and I select the branches I'm sure I don't need, I let a little stick. I'm gonna clean those and transform in little gin, and then I'm gonna wire everything, and at the end I squish the structure together and create the shape of the tree. As you can see, I haven't pruned these branches, even if for sure I'm not gonna need them for all their length, but I still don't know how long I need to create my tree nice and compact, and the same for the first branch. I still don't know how long I need my pad to be according to the final design. So what I like to do on Juniper, where they have nice extension, I wire always all the lines, and then when I start setting the branches, I can get clear idea of the length and the volume of the shape I'm giving to the tree, and I can start shortening it back. So now that the tree is nice and clean, I have all my lines ready to be wired. I want to start putting the first structural wire between the two stronger lines of the tree. One is the main branch and one is the apex. So connecting these two lines, I can create a linking point that, apart helping me to move down this part and forward and eventually bend also this down, I can use the wire also as linking point to eventually put a guide wire and squish the upper part of the tree together. The lower part is nice and compact. Here I have too much length and I need to squeeze the tree together. I don't want to lose the option of having this green, just cutting this part away and substituting with a little branch. I want to try to create a styling that is as full as possible, and also because the tree is very nice and twisty, I'm not scared to have also some twist in the top. So that two parts will match nicely. So I already select my piece of wire. The wire has to be 1/4 of the size of the branch. We can always decide to overwire or go smaller according to the type of work. Normally, on a first work on a tree, especially if I have to do some structural work in this part, I prefer to overwire a little bit. So my wire now is 1/3 of the first branch here, but it's still a little bit smaller than 1/4 for this part because I'm also using a guide wire. So the second thing I have to think is where is gonna go this branch and where I'm gonna twist this guy. So because this is the left branch and it's gonna go down and forward, I'm gonna wire this branch counterclockwise. Counterclockwise is gonna bend the branch down. In the meantime, it's gonna hold the fiber of the tree and holding the branch in position. Always when I put a piece of wire, I want the two part of the wire go in the opposite position, so the anchor point is always a U. So if I can U anchor between this branch and the wire that goes up, I'm gonna have this one counterclockwise and this part clockwise. That is actually helping me to bring this part more back and twisting in that direction. So let's create our U anchor, and then starting from the anchor that actually is in this position, we're gonna wire the two sides. First of all, I'm gonna go clockwise up to the main trunk line because it's the thicker part and will act like an anchor, and then I'm gonna wire the branch and finish the wiring up to the top. So the first branch will go down and forward, so the wiring will be counterclockwise, while the other half going up to the main structural line of the apex will go up clockwise direction. So now I need to twist the tree like this and put the wire. As soon as I think that my wire is becoming too big for the branch and I'm having inner branches suitable to be matched one to the other, I'm gonna cut the wire. I always try to cut my big wire underneath the branch, so the cut will be not on top and will be very evident to the eye. So now that the first branch is wired, I can go through and finish wiring the top. Now that the first structural wire is on the tree, as I said, I create my anchor and then I run the counterclockwise to the main branch, first branch, and clockwise up to the top. I have the secondary line, so I go for size. I don't wire thinking inside, outside, or lower, upper, because these three still structurally need to be built. I start always from the bigger branch, I wire the bigger line, and then I size down my wire according to the next branches. So now you can see in the back of the tree I have these two branches and these two branches, so I want to try to match 2 by 2 and create a good anchor around the trunk and wire them out. Always thinking a little bit of the direction, so always clockwise or counterclockwise according to the position I want to put them, and then I can move to the apex where I have another 3 branches, so probably I'm gonna wire one of these two up to the apex and then the other I will just re-anchor. And so also my secondary branches will be wired, and then I can downsize and go with the smaller one. Because I have a odd branch, I use the base of another one that I already wired as an anchor for my single branch. So always using the rule 1 piece of wire, 2 direction. So now all my lower branches are nicely wired and I can move them in every position I need. So this is anchor here, these two and these two are the 2 pair, and always the anchor is a nice U. Now I can concentrate on the 3 intermediate branch left, and then I downsize the wire on the other one left. Another thing, while I'm wiring, I always try to stay in front of the branch that I'm wiring, and I try always to have the branch that I'm wiring at the height of my chest, so my arm is always working from inside, pulling the wire outside. I don't have to lift my shoulders, and I don't get tired very fast because I'm working in an uncomfortable position. What I like to say is that one of my hand is the holder and the other hand is the twister. So the holder stays always attached to the branch and help me to open the little branches and make room for the wire, while the twister from outside always pull the wire and twist the wire around the branch, stepping up the wire with nice steps and nice angles.
What angle do you recommend?
So normally I recommend an angle between 60 degrees and 70 degrees, or depend of the type of work, 45 or 60 degrees. If you want to have more hold, you do 45, 60. If you want to just move branches and you want to stay a little bit more open, you do 60 to 70. So now all my secondary branches are wired. You can see how the tree look like crazy, because while I wire, I also open all the branches in different position, filling different spaces, so I can always have my attention to the single branches and see what's going on, how many other branches I need to wire, which branch is not wired yet, and every branch is filling a space. If I wire and I push the branches together, this is not good to keeping my attention to what still need to be wired. That's the reason why I always open everything. So now I can concentrate in areas and I can get, for example, all the secondary branches coming from the first branch wired, that are very small and long, and then already finished some wire on these little guys here until everything is wired from the lower part up, and then I will be ready to style the tree. So now we are at the end of the wiring. Everything is wired. So starting from the structure, secondary branches, smaller, and then side by side, me and my assistant Walter, we wired all the little foliage up to the top. So everything that has a little bit of strength is wired, so can be positioned and put in the right position. As I said originally, you can see how all my branches are open, so I can really focus to the exact position I want to push them. I don't